Hi, good evening, grade 10 students. And this quarter we'll be studying World War One. It's very important as it affected the United States now and then. So we have a lot of things to think about. And actually, this is the lesson right away after the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution had an impact on World War One since Germany started to be a superpower, and this annoyed England and France. So Germany gained its superiority due to its advance in the industry. So in World War One, now the essential question: what was the most significant impact? This is what we have to be thinking about, and we have a photograph here. And this photograph depicts a battle on the Western Front during the World War One. Brutal battles like this would make the war the bloodiest in history up to that time. A lot of people lost their lives. A lot of people died because of this war. We're going to be studying mainly four lessons. The first one is how the world begins, and as the conflict in Europe intensified, the United States was forced to abandon its neutrality. So actually, the United States was neutral. Neutral means that the United States didn't want to take part in that war anyway, but the United States had to take part. Then the United States joins the war. How the United States joined the World War One? The United States mobilized a large army and navy to help the Allies to achieve victory. Lesson 3 will be about the war at home. The World War spurred social, political, and economic change in the United States, how it changed society in the United States. Number 4, Wilson, the American president, fights for peace. After the war, European leaders opposed most of Wilson's peace plans, and the US Senate failed to ratify the peace treaty. There is a point to stop at now. It's the story of an American lady. She was a member of the US House of Representatives. She is a lady, and she refused the decision that the United States joins the war. I would like you to read this and take notes of that, and how women refused the US go to the war. Actually, finally, the United States joined the war, but actually, it's like the women had their say, and they said no to the war. And actually, as we talked earlier, war is a loss, even for the winners. Even the winner of the war, they lose a lot. No, there is no winner in a war. Okay, the big idea here is the conflict in Europe intensifies. The United States was forced to abandon its neutrality. Why is it important to learn about that right now? So, the United States remains involved in European and world affairs. The United States has always been involved in the European and world affairs, and we have a lot of key terms to look for while we're studying. Actually, I would like to remind you of the page numbers. This is page 654. After much debate as to whether the United States should join the fight, Congress voted in favor of the US entry into the World War I. With this decision, the government abandoned the neutrality that America had maintained for 3 years. What made the United States change its policy in 1917? Okay, then we're moving to the causes of World War One. Although many Americans wanted to stay out of the war, several factors made the American neutrality difficult to maintain. As an industrial and imperial power, the United States felt many of the same pressures that had led the nations of Europe into devastating warfare. Historians generally cite four long-term causes: the World War I, nationalism, imperialism, militarism, and the formation of a system of alliances. So the first cause here is called the nationalism. So throughout the 19th century, politics in the Western world were deeply influenced by the concept of nationalism. Nationalism is a devotion to the interests and culture of one's nation. So take notes of this definition, as it's really important. So you're very devoted to your own culture, your nation. Often nationalism led to competitive and antagonistic rivalries among nations. So in this atmosphere of competition, many feared Germany growing power in Europe. So actually here you're very proud of your own culture, you defend it, you feel superior uh, to other nations. So in addition, various ethnic groups resented domination by others. So they longed for their nations to become independent. So many ethnic groups looked to larger nations for protection. So Russia regarded itself as a protector of Europe's Slavic people, no matter which government they lived under. So among these Slavic people were the Serbs. Serbia, located in the Balkans, was an independent nation. However, millions of ethnic Serbs lived under the rule of Austria-Hungary. As a result, Russia and Austria-Hungary were rivals for influence over Serbia. Then the second cause of the World War I is imperialism. So for many centuries, European nations had been building empires. These nations had slowly extended their economic and political control over various people of the world. Colonies supplied the European imperial powers with raw material and provided markets for manufactured goods. As Germany industrialized, it competed with France and Britain in the contest for colonies. So actually, these countries they were racing to have more colonies to occupy other lands. When they occupy other lands, they having their market for their goods because they're industrial countries, and they're going to find raw material too. So actually, the only ones were France and Britain, and now Germany is competing with them. So imperialism is another cause of World War One. Then militarism. Militarism, as you see, the term is related to military. Empires were expensive to build and to defend. So the growth of nationalism and imperialism led to increased military spending. So they spend a lot on their military. So each nation wanted stronger armed forces than those of any potential enemy. The imperial powers followed a policy of militarism. So militarism here, the definition, take notes of that. The development of armed forces under use as a tool of diplomacy. By 1890, the strongest nation on the European continent was Germany. It had set up an army reserve system that drafted and trained young men. At first, Britain was not alarmed by Germany's military expansion. As an island nation, Britain had always relied on its navy for defense and protection of its shipping routes. In addition, the British Navy was the strongest in the world. However, in 1897, Wilhelm II, Germany's Caesar or emperor, decided that his nation should also become a major sea power in order to compete more successfully against the British. Soon, British and German shipyards competed to build the largest battleships and destroyers. France, Italy, Japan, and the United States quickly joined the naval arms race. So it was actually as a race. So here, then we're moving to the alliance system. So by 1907, there were two major defense alliances in Europe. The Triple Entente, later known as the Allies, consisted of France, Britain, and Russia. The Triple Alliance consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. So Germany and Austria-Hungary, together with the Ottoman Empire, an empire of mostly Middle Eastern lands controlled by the Turks, were later known as the Central Power. So we have two groups now. We have the Allies and we have the Central powers. Some European leaders believed that these alliances created balance of power, in which each nation or alliance had equal strength. So when they're grouping together, they have equal strength, the balancing, in which each nation had equal strength. Many leaders thought that the alliance system would help decrease the chances of war. They hoped that no single nation would attack another out of fear, that the attacked nations' allies would join to fight, but actually this did not happen. So that's all for today's history session. I would like you to take notes of the main definitions and also write the question down. Analyze causes. How did the nationalism and imperialism lead to conflict in Europe?